Now the moment we've all been waiting for.
I am Nate Riggle, and you are listening to The Way of the Bonfire. All right, good people. This is a good episode we got going on here. This podcast is all about how do we bring people together in the most meaningful ways possible so that good, hardworking people can make the most of their lives. Stop waiting to do that. On recent episodes, I mentioned the way to start making the most of your life. There's only three things. Okay, there's a lot of things in those three things, but those are growth, enjoyment, and connection. I actually kind of like to think about it in the other way around. It starts with connection and enjoyment, and that's what makes growth possible and sustainable so that the bottom doesn't fall out. Even if you're crushing it in some area, if you don't have one without the other, it's not going to happen. I've seen some mighty ones fall, and some really respectable people just have everything unravel because they are just focusing on one of them. Maybe you have the world fooled. Maybe I had the world fooled when I was doing that. Maybe they had the world fooled. We're all just kind of trying to figure it out, but it all comes down to that. And to talk about how do you get better in those three categories, or like where do you start? Maybe you're feeling like you have none of those, or every single bucket of connection, enjoyment, and growth, those three things, like they're broken and they're empty. Listen, it's okay. Lots of people have been there, including myself, and you're not alone in that struggle. And I want to share a story about rock climbing, this element of my life that I don't do it really much anymore. But when I was 13, my older brother, he found this huge cliff hidden in the woods by our house. It became like one of the most beloved activities in his life. I just wanted to do whatever my older brother was doing, but I also I started learning stuff from it. I was like, this is way more than just climbing a rock. Like there's a lot to this, and there's something special about it. There is this culture and a way of interacting with other climbers and all this stuff that goes into it. And a big part of that was maybe you're using a rope or not, doesn't really matter. Usually you're climbing with somebody else. Only the people that are on another level than me or the crazy people are doing the by themselves climbing. So I can't really speak to that part. But the point I'm getting at here is that when I was climbing a lot, when I was brought into that world by my brother, it was really something that I loved because it taught me a lot about people and it taught me a lot about myself. There were times where I'd be up on the rock and I'd have my belay person on the ground, or just I'd be bouldering and somebody else would be on the ground. And if it was my brother, usually, or whoever, it's part of the what's expected or just what naturally happens when you have somebody else there with you, is I would often get to a point where I'd be climbing and I'm in this really hard section, or is a harder route for me. And I'd be like, this is not possible. I don't see how this could possibly be something that is a viable route. I don't think that it's something that actually works. What is this? I'd maybe have a hand on a decent hold barely, and then maybe a decent foothold with my left foot. And then my right hand's doing whatever it's doing. It's okay, to go anywhere from here other than down by falling, I need a foothold, and there's no foothold. I can't go anywhere. And the person on the ground would be like, actually, there is a foothold there. You just can't see it. And that might be because the rock bends underneath me and where my head is positioned, where my head was at, I just physically could not see the foothold. Or sometimes it was so minuscule that my brother would be like, and my older brother was always great at this. He'd be like, it's tiny. You can't see it. It's like a grain. I'm going to put my foot on a grain. And he's like, well, that's how I got past that spot. And I've already done it. And trust me, you put your foot on that, it's going to give you just the amount of balance and things you need to get your momentum and keep going past this spot. And sometimes it was a little chip, so I could barely see it. And what I'm getting at here is that for me, I just need a foothold. And the toughest parts of anything are when I don't think there is a foothold because I'm not connecting with anybody. I'm working on something, right? Whether it's business or relationships or whatever it is, I'm like, hey, I just need a foothold. I'm going to find my foothold. Give me that tiny little grain or that tiny little chip to get started on. Give me that and I'll build from there. I know I can keep going because I proven that 100 times, as long as I can find the foothold. But I don't see a foothold here. I don't feel like there's a foothold. And that's what it feels like when you feel like you don't have growth, enjoyment, or connection in any quantity, or you just don't have one of those, or you don't have, everything just kind of feels upside down. Or you're like, I am so stuck on this one thing. I cannot get to the next level here. Maybe other people can, but not me. It's not built for me. This route is not built for me. And that might be true, but what actually is usually the case is I'm not using connection, the person on the ground, the person that's already run through it, to go and say, hey, you can't see it. There's a foothold here, because I'm not even reaching out. I think that the biggest part of any problem that anyone's having when they're stuck, or when they're trying to get to that next level, or they're trying to grow in some way, or they're lacking like any kind of enjoyment in their life, just from talking with all these people and in all different walks of life, in different circumstances, it always starts with connection. Well, curiosity and perspective that come with connection, right? But it starts with connection. And so I'm launching a 5-part series starting on the next episode. And it's just going to be a limited series because I want it to be limited for you. I want you to, anyone who listens to this podcast, to have a challenge that they can take on and get curious with, and just try to test out these tiny little footholds of connection. It's going to be a different one on each episode. And at the end of that, or anytime during the 5-part series, if you're like, I don't get it, or it's not clicking for you, maybe you're thinking, I can't find the right connection to show me the foothold. If you're like, you know what? I do want to get a foothold. That's all I really need to get started. What that foothold looks like for a lot of people is just one conversation. So if you go to that website, changewithnate.com, we'll take 30 minutes and see if maybe that is where you need to get started. And if not, just listen to the series and try it out. And you don't have to interact with me at all. I feel that. But I'm going to give you that part for free. So tune into the next 5 episodes, take part in this, pay attention, get curious with it, and see if it's making a difference. And if you want more of that, you know where to get it. Go get them. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. I love the chance to make your day better in some way, whether that ends up being just a quick reset that you needed to change things up, or even just a laugh or some fresh perspective. If you're getting value out of it, can you please do me a favor and share it with someone else? Because as more people find and listen to the show, I'm able to bring more good stuff more often. It is the fuel to the bonfire. Also, I'd love to hear your feedback and any thoughts or ideas or questions you have, so we can be more connected and make the show even better with your input and your inspiration. The quickest way to do that is to send a message to my Instagram handle at Way of the Bonfire, which is also included in the show notes. And if you just want to avoid accidentally scrolling on social media, you can send me an email at nate@wayofthebonfire.com. And you know it, but make sure you click that follow button so you can catch new episodes as soon as they're available. Keep tending the bonfire, and we'll see you on the next one.